The Who and How Club is in a paid partnership with BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the sponsor of this episode, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire and you'll match with the therapist in as little as a couple of days. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you ever have any questions. You've all been following me on my journey to therapy through my online highlights and even throughout countless episodes of the show. I've shared, my experiences with having two therapists, how long it really got me to get into therapy, throughout my entire life, growing up through the foster care system, not knowing who my father was, and certain life challenges that I went through. I shut down the idea of having a therapist or going to therapy every chance that I got. But it took a certain situation and occurrence that happened a couple years ago at work that presented itself as a bit traumatizing, that forced me into finally trying therapy out. And that experience didn't just help me, deal with that traumatic thing that happened at work. It actually helped me overcome some of the sadness and pain that I was keeping inside of me throughout my teenage years and my adolescence, and even through my early adult years. So therapy really helped me, and I'm actually thinking about trying therapy once again for this year. So if you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, go to betterhelp.com/whohow or choose whohow during sign up and get 10% off your first month of therapy when you use the Who and How Club's code. Once again, that is betterhelp.com/whohow, and you'll get a nice discount for your first month of therapy, and that's a 10% discount. All right, don't be afraid to try something new, especially for this new year. Start early and set a new tone. Once again, that's betterhelp.com/whohow, as in the Who and How Club, WHOHOW. That is the code to get your discount. All right. Now start your journey just like I have, and let's get to today's episode. Welcome to the Who and How Club. And I'm your host, and your club leader. Arys Déjan. Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Who are you? Who are we? Who are you? Who am I? Who are we? Who are you? Who am I? Let's figure it out together, huh? Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Who and How Club. It is your boy, Arys Déjan, checking in once again. You know the slogan, you are the Who and How Club. I am the Who and How Club, and we are the who's and how's of this world. Without you, without me, there is no we. So while we're here together, we might as well just pick each other's brains, figure out who we are as individuals, and find unique ways to kind of relate to one another and just converse and get to know one another. Even if we're strangers, we got to know how to communicate and find ways to just pick each other's brains on certain topics, certain perspectives and experiences that we all kind of share under this one thing called life, right? So today is a very special episode because I have an individual on the show who pretty much submitted to be a guest a few months back. But as you all know, we're kind of backed up with guest appearances and stuff like that. But I have been really looking forward to having today's guest on the Who and How Club platform. Right now, she's in Paris, and we're going to kind of pick her brain and see what that experience has been like. But you want to introduce yourself to the folks, fellow podcaster?
Yes. Hello. I am Ashley Rivard. And what else I don't know how you like to be your guest to introduce.
Yeah, usually they just introduce themselves, and you want to tell the people kind of like what you do, maybe?
Well, in a nutshell, I would call myself a truth seeker, and under that umbrella would be the projects I am working on. So I too have a podcast, Into the Dawn.
Into the Dawn, yes.
Into the Dawn, and it focuses on taboos, and I'm obsessed would be like obsessed with cultural taboos.
Mm.
And that really kind of, I've always been, but you know, when you have this inkling, but you don't know how, you don't know why. It's just kind of like percolating in your belly. And then as you grow, you're like, okay, this is what it is, right? And there's times, you know, you're just not confident with how much you feel or where you're going, because it's not acceptable maybe culturally. So anyways, I've always been on this path. And then probably 3 years ago, I started volunteering my time on the suicide crisis line. And I've always been in the entertainment business. And I just knew I wanted to do something deeper though. And I was like, how do I fuse entertainment with thinking more so, right? So anyways, from the suicide line, hearing people's like darkest night of the soul moments, right? That it really started making me realize just what's the solution out there? What is the solution? Okay, great. So then everything I do now is, I mean, I hate this word, but I don't know how else to say it right now. It's like light and dark, right? Like
Yeah.
I try to take the dark, the reality of life that we all have, and I try to bring humor into it. Not always. I'll have, with my podcast, it's an intellectual conversation. But with my background in writing and entertainment, I go and also learning from the suicide line. Why are these people changing their mind from about to take their life? What happens in 30 minutes that I can get them from hysterically crying in the beginning to laughing? And so I took a lot of notes, you know? And so from that, I basically am testing my hypothesis right now. And that's really what I do is I dive into cultural taboos. I and challenge them.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, clearly you could see why she's on today's show. You know, speaking of suicidal intervention, again, reading up on you and seeing all of the great work that you do, you know, a lot of the things really resonated with me. You know, I had suicidal tendencies growing up as well. So I was really excited to get on this episode today and kind of pick your brain on that stuff and see how we can spark some things in people and hopefully inspire some folks to continue to stay,
Absolutely.
continue to remain, right?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned that you're a truth seeker. That also resonated with me. What does being a truth seeker mean to you? Seeking the truth, and whose truth? Is it our own truth? What are your thoughts on truth and the concept around truth? Because everyone thinks that their truth is the
Yeah, yeah.
right truth, right? So what is truth?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. 100%. So as being in Paris, it's interesting because I came here having this gut feeling that it was a life or death moment for me living in Los Angeles. And I know that seems extreme. I wasn't suicidal. My soul felt like it was dying.
Mm.
And I kept getting visions of Paris. I'm not even a city person, okay? Like I love quiet nature. But I just kept getting this and getting this, and I just knew something was dying. I was dying, and my soul I wasn't just fueled from the inside out. Um, and so,
Was that from the environment? Was that from people, something external or someone external of you kind of holding that energy in and holding you back? Was it just the environment, just LA itself, or was there
well,
something specific?
in hindsight, looking back, I
Yeah.
mean, you know, some people are more sensitive than others, right? I would call myself an extremely highly sensitive person. Like I'll walk in a room and I'll feel fine. And then I'll be like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Can I cuss on the show or no?
Please curse. Please.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'll be like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And then it's like, I'll walk in somewhere and I'll be like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I feel like I got hit by a train, right? And
You
it
could
took,
feel it. You're a feeler.
yeah, and it's taken a lot of work to understand what's mine, what's not mine.
Mm.
And so, anyways, looking back in LA, I was always there for like entertainment and work, but the level of not okay, how do I preface this? Is I know I'm an intense person, like, because I'm a why person. So somebody will be like, well, this is fact. And I'm like, why? It's not to make them wrong. I don't think in right or wrong. Like, I won't get into politics because to me, if it's true for you, great. But I think, anyways, that's a whole nother issue, is like when you make someone wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so in LA, I just felt like I just don't understand. Like, I can talk to somebody, but like I could feel there was always this disconnect. They
Resistance.
didn't
Yeah.
get me.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't get me, or I would be very intense and I'd be like, okay, let's have a deep conversation. And not in LA. I'm generalizing. There are deep people there, right? But what was happening, and it just was like, what is this? Isn't feeling in my soul right. So yes, it was the environment, the people around me. I didn't have the depth of connection I wanted with people, and I needed to expand my mind completely. And so when I got to Paris, and the whole thing about truth and what is truth is because I've been talking to a lot of people here and asking them, like, what are Parisians like? What do they value? What this, that, the other. And I noticed in LA, and I think every culture, and then within cultures, there's subcultures, right? How many people are really independently thinking for themselves? And I think when you're immersed in culture, religion, family, these are all cultures, right? It's so hard. And I realized that I'm very good at like seeing what's going on with people and where the like what's wrong, quote unquote, but I didn't realize like actually how affected and all my decisions were based on making other people feel good. And I'm not even that person, I mean, of course I want people to feel good, but I just was like,
Not at
oh,
the
you're
expense, not at the expense of yourself, or losing a piece of yourself or your true beliefs or your individualism, like
yes,
you're
and
mentioning. Go.
being an individual.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I've always had like a feisty voice, but I realized that there was something like, as soon as I got onto Paris territory, there was just like this, like, oh my God, like it's just me and me now.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, it's been hard as hell. I mean, I've gone to the depth of despair of feeling, but in that, I realized, oh, in LA, I didn't know I was still doing my little running from self. Even though I would consider myself aware, I could pick up the phone anytime I needed to call somebody to talk something through. Well, not here because I'm 9 hours ahead. And so it's just, and I don't know anyone. And so I've had to show up for myself and actually realize, oh, you can depend on yourself. And I just realized how codependent I was on, just little day-to-day things. So, but going back to truth is, I think it's just, I've noticed that nobody with the suicide line and with people I meet, we don't question why we think the way we think. We don't take it a step further. Here, I ask everyone, why do you think that way? Why do you smoke so much? Why is everyone doing this? Da, da, da. And the response I get all the time, culture. That's it. And I'm like, but why is no one questioning culture? Questioning in the sense of not making it wrong, but do I vibe with this? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is
I do know
this
what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like what people forget is like, you're like, they'll use that as the excuse, like culture, right? But really, you're the one making the decision to attach yourself to that culture. You're removing your own individualism and detaching it and using culture as the reasons why you might be associated with this particular group or this concept or this way of life or whatever, right? And it's like, but in actuality, you're the one that has actually made the decision to attach yourself to these things, whether it's an addiction or, of course, there are layers to that, right? But surface level wise, addiction, religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, unknowingly, we're being individuals in that sense, we are, there is individualism there because we've made a decision for ourselves to attach ourselves to these social whatever norms, right?
Mhm.
But then we get lost in that and forget that, like, oh, I actually made this decision, so I can also make the decision to not be a part of that or remove myself from it and learn how to depend on myself, for an example. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. That's I believe that's our true nature, or why we exist, is to learn how to depend on oneself and to survive with just oneself without having to attach yourself to so many external things. Or we it's very easy to get lost in this life that we live, right? And it's overbearing in a way because it's all around us. We don't know how to be ourselves. It's shown on social media, on television, whoever, even how we're taught growing up. It's like, you want to be accepted. You don't want to be the odd person out, odd woman or man out in conversation. Even the littlest thing as conversation, you don't want to be the only one who thinks the opposite of everyone. So where do you think, like, a fear, clearly it's a fear, there's a fear attached to that. Where do you think that fear comes from in us? Why we're afraid to kind of stand on our own? And how did you overcome that fear for yourself?
I mean, I almost think it's like a collective energy that is just like, right? Like when we're birthed out of the womb, if you're Jewish, let's say, you're being raised in Judaism, and this is what is supposed, that's all you know,
Right.
right? That I think if also I do think, like, everyone's bred differently. Like I have a sister, she's not like me,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we're all different, right? I just came out like a little bit of a spitfire, and like, okay, so there's that. But also I just think that that is it, like that safety element, right? Like the mallow, what is that hierarchy? Do you know what is
Which
that
one?
hierarchy? It starts with an M. M, right? Mallow,
I
the
think I know what
dog.
you're. Yeah.
Yeah, the hierarchy of human needs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we all need safety, and I think it's in belonging. And so basically, it's what is the we want to feel like we belong, and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel comfortable. And if we don't feel like we belong, okay. But then I think it's we're not taught to take it a step further, to ask, like, is this who your soul is?
Yes.
Here, that's just conversation doesn't happen. In some communities it does, but majority, I would say it
Majority, it
doesn't.
doesn't. Yeah.
And I think, based on like the suicide conversations I've had with people, when I pose questions to them, to kind of like, if like, here you are as a being, to like take a step back and look at yourself, and
Hmm.
like, and kind of like observe,
Yes.
that's where the relief, I think, can happen.
Yes. I I wanted to ask you, and I agree with you. And I think you were talking about Maslow's hierarchy.
Maslow's, yeah.
Maslow's, yeah, yeah, yeah. My manager at work always references Maslow's hierarchy. I work in the social services field, so
Mhm.
I manage homeless shelters in the city that I'm in. So I'm surrounded by a lot of mental health, uh, a lot of addictions, folks who are just on the spectrum and would suffer from chronic homelessness and all of these labels and these titles, really, but they're all individuals, right? So I go through a lot of I'm exposed to a lot on a day-to-day basis. And I speak about this on the show, about like dealing with so many personalities on a day-to-day basis. I have to remember how to deal with my own at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And sometimes you forget. So that's how you become drained. And that's how you don't have a lot of energy inside of you to give to yourself. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So how have you in your life and all of the work that you've done, and we're going to break some things down, but I just want the people to get these little tidbits about who you are and how Ashley thinks. How have you made time to kind of like, give to yourself, give yourself that energy that you probably gave a lot to others in the past, but then you're like, no, you know what? I deserve this. It's my time. How did you find that way of doing that?
Well, I'm very feeling, right? So I know if I don't feel good, I need to replenish myself.
Mm.
And actually, from the suicide line, I learned even more. They made it a huge, which was beautiful. They had a meditation room.
Yes.
They sometimes I could only take one call. I would be so whacked out, and they say your self
Progress or
not your self progress, but your mental health
your
is more
mental health.
important
Yeah.
than helping somebody,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
I can't help somebody if
If
I'm
you
not good.
exactly.
So I would leave, and I but I think as an American, I'm starting to learn like the difference, right, of different cultures, like country wise. I'm like, wow, this is my experience personally, but I just felt guilty for everything. If I enjoyed anything, if I felt good about anything, I would immediately have a thought, well, you're selfish or you shouldn't be doing that. And what I'm learning here is they're all about pleasure. And I'm thinking, well, why do we have to learn through suffering?
Yeah.
And but that's a whole nother topic. But I make myself, it's taken years, but more and more, I'm like, you know what? No, I can't help anyone. I can't do the work that I want to do on this planet if I do not feel good. But I do understand the process, and I do know it takes a lot to overcome your own mind to because I think I will stand by this. I'll stand by this. I think more people fight for their limitation than their vision.
Mm.
It's easier to fight for your limitation because it makes you feel good about yourself, not showing up for yourself.
Damn. Mm. Expand. Go deeper with
well,
that.
let me just tell you.
Because I
So
know what you mean. Yeah.
again, my decision coming to Paris, it wasn't just, oh, I'm going to Paris. It took everything I had. I had so many obstacles. And the only thing that got me here was that inner voice saying, no, you got to go. There's something there. But then on the other side of that voice constantly was this, are you crazy? You're just going to like walk away from everything? Like, you're not set up properly to even do this.
Yeah.
Like I know so many people looked at me like this was like so illogical and didn't make sense. And part of me fed into that. And I would spin out and go, oh my God, maybe I am making the wrong decision. This is so stupid. What am I doing?
Yeah.
You have such like a cozy life. But then I was like, but you're not happy. Okay. And it's time for a drastic decision. And you know what? If you fail and if it's terrible, at least you did something that your soul is telling you to do. Right.
Yeah.
So you listen to your voice.
Yes.
And so
because you wouldn't feel, even though you have this second guessing happening in your mind and in your heart, your gut it still has you feeling like, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to go. I need to leave. So there must be something that is right, out of throughout all of these feelings and these emotions, but we second guess ourselves based on what people are saying or feeding to us, our self-doubt, our fears, going back to that fear aspect, right? Like we're afraid of change. We're naturally afraid of change because we like to be comfortable. We like that safety net. And I think working in the field that I'm working in, it's like I see people who are not afraid every day to like change pieces of their lives. These folks have seen the bottom of the bottom. So there's only one other direction to go, which is up for them. You know what I mean? So it's like, what am I complaining for? Like sometimes I feel weird because I'll pull up and I'll park with my car and my vehicle. Like I have a Dodge Challenger. And the homeless folks, they'll make these comments like, yo, look at his car or whatever. And it's like, I worked hard for that. I shouldn't feel guilty. But when you hear those comments, it's like, oh, I feel bad. Like I might have more than they do, right? So it's like, should I even go?
I think it's about now making the connection of like in that moment, can you see like they're projecting their limitation, right? And it's going to make them feel better. Misery loves company. And I think it's just like getting into that deep part of self that is saying, like, why should I feel shame if I I have it quote unquote all, if I am living the life that I want to live, if I'm speaking my truth, if I have a ton of money, like, why do we feel bad about that, you know? And I think and it really is like, you know, people want to keep you down
They do. Yeah.
with them. And I mean, I've had to cut people out here from the States because I'm like, well, you know, that doesn't feel supportive, you
Yes.
know, and I'm on a
Yes.
mission. And I'm on a mission to have inner freedom more than anything. I want my mission on my outer to manifest the way I want it to, but more than anything, I need to be free from my mind and free from other people's opinions. People have said things to me on the phone, oh, you know, asking me things, and I've learned here, which are taboos here, not to make them right or wrong, but I'm starting to be able to choose, oh, why do I share that information with people? Like,
Yes.
in America, I think there's just this like, this is what you just, if somebody asks you a question, you respond.
Yes.
But it might be just out of reaction
Yeah.
versus like, wait, do I really want to, you know? So people have asked me certain things and I'm like, you know, I don't think that's appropriate. I'm not going to answer that. And I'm sure they think I'm a bitch now. But I just don't, I'm like, wow, I actually feel more of me because I feel like I didn't have boundaries.
Well, there's strength in that. Yeah, I was gonna say there's strength in not. I wanted to ask, kind of pick your brain on something earlier because
Yeah.
you were saying like and this is another thing I could relate to you with is the why. You know, I'm a guy who asks why, but what I've realized is that depending on the environment that I'm in, or the group of people that are having a conversation or whatever, like I have found value in my why, which means that like I won't ask why in every environment, even if in my mind I'm seeing like there's a disconnect, like what are these people speaking about or whatever. But I won't always share my why because
Mhm.
this isn't the right environment for me to even like question things in, you know? So I value my why. And I could feel when it's time to be like, hey, why? Or question all of these things. Can
Yeah.
you relate to that in any way? Like, are you with your
Yeah.
why and questioning things like
Well, I think, you know, as you know, like as you get older, you discernment, right? And
mhm,
I've never really had a filter, which is good and bad. And I value the authenticity I have,
yes,
but it gets me in trouble as well.
yes,
Um, but you start to learn, yeah, like I'm like, okay, well, if I do what I do and I say it to that person, or you know, it's like an intuitive thing too. You're just like, okay, they're not going to meet me where I want to hold a conversation. You
mm,
know that. And so you just hold space for that person, right? Or this environment to be what it is and not make it any different. Yeah, like I was somewhere the other weekend and I was with somebody totally different than me. And
mm,
my only objective, I was like, I'm just going to learn from this person. I'm not going to say a word. And I realized I was like, wow, that was really interesting experience because I wasn't my normal self, but I was absorbing this person's reality. And it was fine. But I had to prep myself because my natural, maybe you're the same way. You go in a situation and you're just like,
yeah,
this
you
is
want to
how we
combat, you
operate.
want to question it, you want to kind of be not combative but like what's the term I'm looking for? Yeah, you just kind of want to the
Yeah,
contrarian, you want to be a contrarian, you know,
yeah,
in that sense.
yeah. Yeah, but I think also like who was that? I was talking to somebody actually the other night. She's a French woman and she was saying we were talking about the fact she's in a relationship. And she said, you know, I'm so comfortable with my relationship that I don't need to explain to anyone. I don't even need to say he's my boyfriend because I'm so in love with him that I don't need a label. And I'm
Ooh.
like, you know, but that goes back to, and we we're talking about all these labels that people in all different cultures put on themselves. And I was like, well, what do you think about the fact that if we are that, I think if you are so comfortable and you have faced yourself and you're good with yourself, You don't need to dictate to other people or demand to other people what they need to say to you, because you just realize, okay, if this person's mad at me or they're projecting onto me, that's just a reflection of how they meet themselves.
Yes.
You know, it has nothing to do with me. Now that's hard. I mean, I know this intellectually, but I can't always do it. You know, I'm human, and there's close people that, you know, I'll get really affected by. But it's like, okay, wait, can you see that people can only show up to the level that they can show up? And then
We have to understand
perhaps,
that.
perhaps our growth, like if you're an aware person, I think you're just kind of like, there's this element of like, okay, I'm going to show
Stay quiet.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I just think, yeah, as you grow, it's just like, how much do you need to say?
Right. Yeah, you pick and
Yeah.
choose your battles. And I'm learning that. I think therapy has really helped me with that, because I started it for the first time this year. And it's presented itself many times throughout my life, and I've shut it down countless times. But something about this year on my birthday, April 26th, I said, all right, I'm going to do it at age 32. I'm going to try something that I've kind of pushed out. And I've learned since from April to now, I've learned this whole like picking your battles kind of thing. And not everything is worth the war, you know, the war that you bring, because we could bring it. We could really challenge the norms and challenge the ways of thinking, and you know, kind of shake things up a bit with our experiences and our perspectives. But sometimes it's okay to just let things happen in a natural order sense, and you don't have to convince people all the time. Just let them think the way they think, and hopefully they'll figure things out, because then that's us feeding into, we're kind of feeding into what they do. Like, we don't want people to think like us. We just want them to kind of think outside the box, think differently, think in an unlimited way, not limiting yourself, not saying these negative things about yourself, like you can't do something. Like, do you not know how much power you really have? Do you know how much change you can make if you just try something different this time and kind of
But
shift
on
your
top of
focus?
that, though, I mean, I'm sure you know,
Yeah.
yes, okay, we have power, right?
Mhm.
But when it meets, when the, you know, rubber meets the road, quote unquote, it's not easy.
Mhm.
And I think I'm not religious. I'm more spiritual. So we'll just say you could
Same.
say God or whatever. I'd
Yeah,
say the
yeah.
universe. That's my thing.
I say the same thing. Yeah.
I feel that you will get tested, right?
100%.
So
Yeah.
you'll be like,
Ooh.
okay, here's my power. And then it's like boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not easy,
It's
right?
like,
And
now you know your power. Okay, how will you
yeah,
use it? How do you know how to use it? It's that level of self-awareness, right? You gain it,
yeah.
but now you have to learn how to maneuver with it. And what is power? What does power really mean to you? And you were talking about labels, even like our names are labels. We didn't give ourselves this name, you know, like we all live under these labels and these titles that we put such value in. And you brought up the relationship thing with your friend or the individual that you were speaking with. And I've brought that same sort of way of thinking to someone else. And I've come across people who really care about those titles, like being introduced as my girlfriend. And it's like, but you're not understanding. If I introduce you to as my girlfriend, that's actually devaluing. That's actually bringing us lower than what we actually are and what we share. What is a girlfriend? Like that, we're not in high school, you know? You're another being. You're more than just a girlfriend. Something like that's possessive, right? Like that. I want to introduce you as who you are and let them figure out who you are and get to know you. Everyone should have an opportunity to introduce themselves without that title or that, you know, that thing that they have to. But I've met some women that are just like, no, I want to be introduced as your woman, as your girlfriend, because
But
they
don't
need
you
to
think
know.
they're
Everyone
insecure?
needs to know. Pardon?
That's insecurity.
It's 100% insecurity, and they don't. I've had these debates, right? And they're not healthy debates, because
Yeah.
the norms, those norms that we're discussing, like people are just so used to like, this means something. Or like if you unfollow someone on Instagram, it's like, oh my God, you unfollowed me? we could still have a conversation and us not follow each other, like it doesn't matter. None of these things matter, but we're the ones who put weight in it. Like a shark doesn't know it's called a shark. A shark just exists and lives its purpose. But we put that title, us as human beings or beings, however, you mentioned the God thing, and I use God as, for lack of a better term, but our creator, I'm sure God like laughs at us sometimes. Like, what are we doing? why are we living? Why are we limiting ourselves with these ways of thinking and feeling, So
yeah, it's really kind of like a joke, right?
It's a
like
joke, yeah. Dark comedy.
It's a dark, everything is to me a comedy. I've been here and I've had situations where I'll hysterically be crying, so upset, and then I'll just start laughing because because I realize in that moment, okay. And that's another thing. I'm totally guilty of this, and which is why I'm committed now to taking these dark things and shedding more humor into it, because I think when you're having an intellectual conversation, you're meeting each other in an intellectual up here way, right?
Yes.
But when you
even above that, like there's something floating over our heads, or even with the third eye, right? Like it's something we don't see.
Mind.
Yeah. It comes from there.
Yeah. But if you're laughing, right? Or if you can like make fun of yourself, this is in your heart. Laughter comes from your heart, right? Like from your being. So if, I make fun of suicide, I know that sounds weird, but the suicide line, we were cracking jokes all the time there because it was so heavy. It was so intense that if you weren't laughing, you were going down with the ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Keep yourself from crying. You got to laugh to keep yourself from crying.
Yeah. And I would tell these people who are suicidal, I would make fun of myself or help them make fun of themselves, to not take themselves so seriously, because we all do it. Every time we get triggered, I think we just get super serious and we're like, this is it. I'm done. No. Like that's just how we operate. But if we can just go, okay, and have somebody poke the bear and laugh a little bit at this and go, okay, do we really need to,
bring it to this level? Yeah.
Like, because that's what I'm saying is like, how do you transform the thought? Because you can understand it intellectually, but then how do you take it a step further to say, this does not have to be my reality anymore? And there's steps, and there has to be that. I think you have to have that unsatiable hunger that you want that inner freedom more than anything. Inner freedom more than success or anything, because you could have all the money, all the success, but then you're worrying about this and da. But if your focus is how free can I be from caring what other people think by listening to my soul? And when I talk to people about this soul thing, it's interesting. I've heard so many people say to me, but what if we don't know what our soul wants? And I'm like, wow, okay. I guess a lot of people don't. I don't think a lot of people take the time, because it's not natural, to sit down and say, who am I independent of this? Who am I independent of a relationship? I've been single, it's embarrassing, but 14 years probably.
You're killing me today.
Yeah, it's bad.
You're killing me today. Saying they can't handle you, eh? They can't handle you.
But I jumped shipped too, because I noticed when I was in my 20s, I didn't like who I was in the relationship. And I knew enough to know that if I brought in another man, I would continue the behavior that I did. And I needed to know, it was very important for me to feel like, okay, I could have a relationship, but my value is not dependent on him. And I think as women, it's super challenging because we obviously have different hormones, that when you connect, there is this merging, right? So I've always tried to also go to like, okay, how can I walk side by side with an equal?
Yeah.
But I had to feel that the level of man I've always wanted, was always in my mind up here. And then to me, I was like, oh,
Right.
bring me.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like the universe has been like, nope, 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 you're getting it yourself. You got to do it yourself. You can't depend, you can't make a man like get you to, because if I got that and I didn't have it internally, I would
Mhm.
think that he was the reason I was doing well.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%.
So
And
it's been a long journey, but that's that's what it is.
do you feel like we can find the individuals that we're in search of, or even just sitting and waiting for them patiently, are the folks that belong to us? I do believe that there's someone out there for
Mhm.
us, right?
Yes.
Do you believe that because you mentioned, that he would be your equal? Do you feel like that's possible, that you two have to be equals, or is it okay because you grow every day? You're
Mhm.
learning more things about yourself, um, at a very fast pace, on a day-to-day basis. So you're always on the up and up. And even if you come across a roadblock that's going to ignite some feelings inside of you, whether it's anger, sadness, things from your past, etc., that roadblock is going to propel you even further. So it's like, who is this individual that's going to be able to come and match this? But should they even match it, or should there be like, I believe there's balance and imbalance. I
Mhm.
don't think that there's balance with equal. I
But
want someone,
what is your equal? Like explain that again. So you're saying like you want, okay, what do you want?
if I know what I don't want. I don't know what I
Okay.
want, but I know what I don't want, right?
Okay.
And it
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
nice, like you said, someone intellectually, someone who's on a different level, how they view themselves, understanding their purpose, and things. It's not just what the eyes see; it's deeper than that. Depth. A person with depth, right? But does she have to be my equal? I don't know. I think I would be okay if she's not, if she's a bit above me, even, because there has to be an exchange of knowledge. Someone has to be able to teach someone and challenge each other. And if you're on the same plane, it's like, where do we go?
But what you're explaining, I'm hearing it as that is an equal. If somebody is seeking or whatever, like
Yeah.
doing things you're doing, but you no, I think, yeah, the growth is always like the challenge, right?
Yes,
Like you're
yes,
going to
yes.
have issues, but an equal meaning of, I would say personally, um, if there's an issue,
Yes.
we're both standing in the discomfort of
Yes,
working it
yes,
out.
yes,
One's
yes,
not jumping ship because the other
yes,
one can hold space. You know what I mean?
yes, yes.
That's an equal.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
not talking about um for me personally, when I say equal, I mean inner equal of yes, there's always going to be shit, but what do you value? Do you value growth?
Mhm.
It's not, to me, it's not an equal. If you're like, I'm going to always grow and that is my commitment to self. And if that other person's like, I don't really care about that. I just want to shop and I want to look good. That's not an equal,
That's not an equal. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
you know?
I understand. Yes. Do you feel like, can you exist or coexist with someone who, like, we speak about values, right? Do the values have to be the same? Do the perspectives on, let's say, like attachment or whatever, like, does everything have to be the same, how you both look at things, or can it be opposites and you still coexist and be equals? Is it possible? Because
I
people, the moment they find out that someone thinks differently from them or views something differently, let's use religion for an example, beliefs, right? They jump ship. Like you said, it's like, no, I don't even, but this could be an amazing person that you've come across, and there are other aspects that make you feel great, and you inspire each other and you uplift one another. But there are these few things that you just don't see eye to eye on. Isn't that okay?
I would say so, in the sense of like morals, I think, need to be the same,
Mirror each
right?
other. Yeah.
Like if you're like, I have integrity and that's something that I need in somebody, well, which would be a value, right? Like
Yes, yes.
I 100% need honesty and integrity. And
Honesty,
that person doesn't have it.
respect. Yeah.
yeah, that's a non-negotiable. But as far as like religion or different belief systems, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm actually have been becoming good friends with, he was on my podcast, and a rabbi. I'm not Jewish whatsoever. And we connected so much because his depth of just vulnerability, right? And he's like this huge rabbi in Los Angeles and written books and on these shows and whatever, but he has the capacity, which is rare for a man, an older man who also has a position, right? Where people put him on a pedestal. And we are talking about taking ourselves off of pedestals because it gets weird. Like people think all of a sudden you can't be human if you're this rabbi or you're this, you know what I mean? And so anyways, the point is I think it's great because you're learning. You need, I think, the same morals, but the mindset would probably be, it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. It's like, who's right and who's wrong? No one's right and no one's wrong. It's just, okay, you value this, but can we meet in a way where we can both respect that I'm not religious, you are, but you're not going to project it on me, or you're super political and you're not going to make me wrong for not being, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, why are you right and I'm wrong? Or why am I right and you're wrong?
Right.
And I think the person who thinks that they're right is the asshole.
Is wrong.
You know?
The one who thinks that they're right is actually wrong. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah.
Because even earlier on, you were saying like, when we're challenging folks, it's not to prove a point, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's really just to challenge the norms and challenge people's ways of thinking and hopefully inspire them to think outside of the box, but not to prove them wrong ever.
Yeah.
Because we would be wrong. We would be like them pretty much if that was our goal, right?
Or yeah, like you said, like that they're thinking enough to say, okay, why do I think this way? Why do I have this belief?
Yes.
Is it mine or is it family?
Yes.
Is it culture? Da, da, da. And then deciding, you know what? I actually do believe. I do vibe with this thought. I'm going to make this mine and I can own it.
Yes.
But at least you're aware. You know what I mean? You've questioned it. Otherwise, it's just this. Yeah, I think that's like the huge missing link in this world is no one questions, and all the different melting pots of culture, especially being in Paris. And, I'm dealing with people from all
walks of life. Yeah.
Thank you. It's interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of this. And I'm sure the listeners and viewers will see they'll understand why you're on the show today, based on the things that we're speaking about. And hopefully we're inspiring some folks or igniting some feeling. I try not to use the term trigger anymore. I use the word ignite. Something has been ignited inside of me, whether it's negative or positive, whether it stems from the past or something happening right in the moment, someone's doing something, it's igniting something inside of me and I'm reacting to it, or I'm going to choose not to, or maybe choose to react it in a different way. But I'm certain that we're igniting, or we will be able to ignite something in some folks when this episode comes out. So I do appreciate everything that you're sharing and being so open. We're kind of going everywhere today, which I like, because organic is the best way to have a conversation, in an organic way. You being a fellow podcaster and being the host and creator of Into the Dawn, I wanted to touch base on a few episodes that kind of stuck out to me that I'm going to listen. I haven't listened to your show yet, but there were some titles that I'm like, those speak to me. And I read the descriptions and I'm like, I want to pick her brain on it. So I'm going to just throw out a couple of episode titles to you and you tell me what these episodes meant to you and why someone might want to listen to that episode. Okay. And these episode titles, like I said, spoke with me. Or spoke to me. So episode 12, the ego can work for us or against us. And now ego has been something that I have had to sort of learn how to use and not allow it to use me. I feel like the ego exists regardless, and it's up to us on how we utilize it. We cannot pretend like it doesn't exist. But if we don't control it or gain some sort of control over it, it'll control us. And you'll become, it's like the other version of yourself, like your opposite, like your shadow and the light side of you and the dark side of you, but they work together, they work in tandem. This is my belief. I'd love to know how that episode went for you and what that meant for you, and what are your thoughts on ego.
Could you remind me who the host, I mean, do you know who the guest is on there? Do you have it written? I'm trying to think.
No, I don't have.
Oh, okay,
No, I
okay.
didn't check that. No,
Because I mean, as I
I know you
you
have guests on the, yeah, but I
yeah,
didn't.
and I have so many different, obviously, topics. I think
Yeah,
it's Lisa Haisha. Um,
but just from your
obviously,
perspective, yeah,
I think that one was about of getting into the fact of like you're talking about, how aware can you be of what your operating system is?
mm-hmm.
And once you're aware of it, then you can actually create your life instead of just responding to everything that is happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? So um that's why I mean, if you are, I would say, if you're a truth seeker and you are like, I need to understand how the mind works and I want to go deeper into that, it's fascinating, because I believe this is Lisa's episode you're talking about, or it's a therapist, because I have therapists on there too.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, the ego can work for you or against you. I think it's that simple of, how are you going to work with yourself? How are you going to show up for yourself? How are you going to love yourself?
All parts of yourself.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when you don't feel good, you want to make yourself wrong. And like, how can you just love that part? And how can you check yourself? So.
Have you mastered your ego?
No, I'm pretty aware, and I have a tribe of people around me, of healers, I would call them.
Yeah.
And of people who I'm like, okay, check me,
Keeps you in check. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is like, where am I missing the mark? I just want to make sure that I'm always in alignment with myself. And if something is brought to me that somebody might be off about what I'm doing, I need to make sure that I communicated or I showed up in my highest form, not from just my ego, right? Because I think our first reaction is our ego reaction, and we get triggered, right? And then I think you do have to always take a step back, a day or two, and sit with, okay, let me drop into my heart and let me see, like, let me be diplomatic about situations. Yeah.
When's the last time you felt like you I'm not going to say use your ego, but where your ego kind of, let's just say, maybe got in the way or kind of overtook things,
Yesterday.
Talk to me.
No, I mean, I'm having a situation right now in Paris where apparently living situations are very different, like when you rent things here.
Yeah.
And I just, as being a woman, and there's men who are, and it's like, I'm being how I am, the American woman, doing things I do. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm really being taken advantage of. I made a mistake. I did, something happened in the apartment where I don't smoke cigarettes or anything. And there's obviously, there's smoke coming through the vents. And I told him this, this can't happen, and I was burning incense, and I burned a hole through his table. Yeah. And I told him, because I was like, I'm going to own this, And then I was talking to some real estate people and a lawyer, and they're like, you should not pay this man. You And I'm like, I get it, because he had me without heat or hot water for 2 weeks. Like, I was like, it's been a very uncomfortable living situation. We'll just say that. And I've put up with it because I write, and I'm like, oh, it's all part of the story, right? Well, bullshit too. But so yesterday I was like, yeah, I'm going to he screwed me, I'm going to screw him. And then I sat with it, right? Because everyone's like, yeah,
that's spiteful. That's spiteful.
Yeah, and I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, people will be shitty people, and they might take advantage of me, but I will not feel good looking in the mirror. But my ego was like, yeah, just walk without taking care of your side of the street. So yeah, yesterday. And then I sat with it and woke up, and I was like, you know what? No, I wouldn't feel good about myself if I did that. even though he's screwing me.
God damn, yeah. The ego is a mother effer. You know what I mean? Like as you're speaking, I'm thinking about a moment just get before we got on our call. Just like my manager came to me and he said, there's someone that wants to do this with you and we could get this and it's a good idea. And I'm just like, nah, fuck them. Like, no,
Yeah,
like we're
yeah,
not
yeah,
going backwards. We're not going to give anyone an
yeah.
opportunity to we're moving forward.
Mhm.
But then on the other hand, it's like, why shut down what the universe is sending your way? Like why be so,
But
put a brick wall up when something can come your way and maybe benefit you. But my ego is just like, I don't want anyone to have access to me. Everyone had their chance. Now that I'm moving forward, it's like people always want to come and revisit. It's like they can smell when you're moving forward, and
yeah,
they want to
but I
come
don't know
back.
if that's ego. I don't know if that's ego. I think I would sit with it also to say, because I think you get tested, right?
Test
So,
exactly. Yeah.
so it could be a test to sit with, like, okay, the ego might be going, yeah, fuck them, but also this might be an opportunity and da da da. But is your soul saying, you wouldn't do that to somebody else? Like, this is what I've
Yeah.
been learning is like, I wouldn't, the people, like, people will send me stuff and I'm like, I would never communicate that way with somebody. I would never
Yeah.
say that to somebody, or I would never,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would never do what this guy is doing to me.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So what's the lesson? You know what I
Boundaries. It's
mean?
boundaries. It's not an
Boundaries.
ego thing. Okay.
It's not, yeah. So you have to sit with, I think, the fact of, well, is it ego or is actually the growth and going, now it's coming back and
I need to
do
say no this time, as
exactly.
opposed
Like
to yes. And all the other time I said yes before and it didn't work out. So what's my lesson out of that, right? Am I repeating history or am I setting a
and what
boundary?
are you telling the universe? Do you know what I mean? Like I get it, like as a podcaster, right? Like I would say yes to like not anyone who wanted to be on the show, but I'm super flexible with people. And then I started to realize they're not valuing me how I value them, their work, their
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And I need to say no, even though I'm not a huge famous whatever, it doesn't matter. Like
Well,
I just want respect.
yeah, it was the music. It was on the music side because I do music as well, podcasting, music, modeling, poetry, etc., and writing. So this is on the music side. And producers
Yeah,
always reach out. They want to send me beats, and I'm just like, I got new producers I'm working with, and it's going
yeah,
well. Why go back? I don't like to revisit things.
of
Like I
course.
try
Yeah,
to
yeah,
close. I
yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah.
close chapters so that you got to make room for new.
Of
I
course.
feel so.
Of
Let's go.
course.
Let's go to another episode title that stuck out to me, and I've had these conversations with people in the past, even in my own relationships, intimate relationships, and this concept has come up, and people never really understand this. But the title of this episode 34, was "Why Men and Women Need Space," and I'm gung ho about men and women needing space and removing that insecurity. Like, just because you need your space, it's not at my detriment. Like, you're an individual, you require space, we all do. How can we evolve? How can we spend time with ourselves and get to know ourselves so that we're better for you when we interact with you? Or especially being a creator, I need to find my inspiration in my
Mm-hmm,
own at my own pace and in my own time. And sometimes that's alone time. Sometimes I need to meditate, I need to burn something, sage or whatever. I need to reconnect with my gods and get back into the music, get back into the creative mode. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes that doesn't require external bodies.
mm-hmm.
So I would love to know how that conversation went on that episode and what your thoughts are on that.
That was one of my favorite. Yeah, I think you're probably too young to know this guy, but he's super well known in the he wrote this book years ago, very famous book. It's called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Do you know
I'm
it? John
I'm
Gray?
I'm aware of it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So this is him. He
Don't
was
let
on.
age don't let age get in the way of the conversation. I've been
Well,
here for 300 years, so we're
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, so he was fascinating. Actually, he talked so long that I had to make it into a two-parter.
I saw
He
that.
talked
Yeah.
about testosterone and estrogen, right?
Yeah.
So what was I really understood what he was saying. He said, women, you got to understand that biologically speaking, men, they get close and they have to. He calls it the rubber band effect. They have to pull away to build testosterone to come back whole. You do not want a man who is going to be with you all the time. And then he says, in women, if you don't give a man space, you're like that weak too. Like you're codependent. Like women, go do yoga, go be with yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that the healthier, like from his, I mean, he's been doing this for probably 40 years and writing all these books on relationships. Like this episode is like facts, right? He has so many facts he's spilling out on how to create healthy relationships and why the space. And I think women more than men, because we have this, like, I think it's estrogen of just, if a man pulls away, all of our self-worth goes down the hill, like, you know, and that's, I would say, an unaware. It could be natural. So women have to understand, and I've spoken to a lot of women who've listened to this episode, and they said it helped them to understand the man to go, oh wait, it's not about me. It's not that he doesn't like me, because women take it personal. If a man pulls away, they think, oh, he doesn't like me, or he's like, something's
he likes
changed.
Someone else.
Yeah. Versus, like, he's like, you have to understand, like, this is just biological stuff that a man has to go be in a cave. It could be a few hours, it could be a day or two, but he said where men miss the mark is they don't communicate it to women. And like that, I think, is also the next level of a relationship, for somebody to stand there and go, I care about you, or I love you, but I need to go take care of me, and I'm going to just be off the grid for like a day, you know? No, like, absolutely adore you, but I just need to replenish myself, and I'm going to come back a better version, you know? But so it's that. And this our whole talk was like moving in from man, woman to
Person and
like
person.
a higher, like soul to soul, you know, like let's move past this, like where our egos live. This is all natural. It's all natural to be like, oh my God, oh, no, 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 no. You just have to grow past it. You have to do the work. And yeah.
Well, you have to be secure with yourself. Like, it's a person and person thing. Like, I understand when, like, people, like, for an example, the author who wrote Love Languages, right? Like, these people who write books, they're speaking from their perspectives and their understandings of love and these concepts that we all live under, right? And it's from their perspective, their experiences, and they're sharing it to the world. And if you believe in it and understand it and dissect it and it relates to your life, then you're going to use it. It's just like the Bible. It's just like anything, right? But if we even remove that, like the teachings of someone else, whether they've placed it in a book or they're a daily blogger on social media, whatever.
Yeah.
Just person to person, the soul thing that you're referring to, like, everyone deserves space. Like, that's just on a personal, like, if I look at you and I see that I accept you as not just a woman, but like, you exist. You're an individual. You have your own life, whether I'm involved in it or not. You're the star of your movie, just like I'm the star of my movie. And just so happens that we're co-starring now because we're now together. You have to have a level of understanding that everyone on this planet requires space. It's not unnatural. There's nothing unnatural about that, but we've been fed to believe that it is unnatural, that if someone goes in their respective cave, male or female, that there's a disconnect now, or, you know, they like someone else, or I've done something wrong. Like, who wouldn't want to be, that's the ego. Who wouldn't want to be with me 24/7 every day? Like, why do you need space from me? That's the ego speaking. And that's where some women have more egos than men, even in that aspect. You know, it's like, there's just, how do we understand that we're just people that require these basic things, that it's like space, food. We need to be fed intellectually, you know, mentally stimulated, emotionally. We want to be in healthy environments, you know, and we want to be able to be inspired by the person that's in our life so that we can inspire them as well. Like, these are just person to person things. But
but it takes the
it as a male and female thing. Go.
I mean, yes, but I think it just goes back to those fundamental of like, uh, of being confident enough
Yes.
within yourself to
Within
sit
yourself.
by yourself, to
Yeah.
sit alone.
Yeah.
And, again, it goes against the norm. It goes against what we're taught, and it
What we're
goes
taught. Yeah.
what inside we want, because we do need people. We do need to,
Coexist. Yeah.
coexist.
Cohabitate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Do we? No, we do. Yeah.
no, we do. I'm like the ultimate loner, but
Me too.
I've
Yeah.
realized that, oh my God, like I need people. I need people to thrive. I need people but now being here, the level of people I'm connecting with is totally different than what I was dealing with in LA. And I feel alive in a way that I had never felt. And that's why now I can be like, this was the right decision. 100% this was the right decision. It's been hard as hell. Like I said, I have broke down in the middle of the street crying on a bed. Like these are moments I'll never forget in my life because it's been so hard.
Yes.
And the pain has been deeper than any pain I had felt.
Mm.
But it's like the awareness even of like, oh no, it's just you, and you got to hold you, and you got it. Like there's that saying, and that's it's come up here a lot. This isn't against you. This is for you.
For you.
So I've been able to start to flip my mind more of every time something happens. I'm like, okay, how is this for me? Even like, listen, you know how you said, we were talking earlier, like, oh, your voice, your head will override why you should do something, right? And I live in LA. I drive a car. Here, I'm taking the metro. Never have taken. I'm not a fan. We'll say that. But I'll get very uncomfortable. I'll watch, and my gut will be like, something shady is going on, and I don't speak the language. Okay.
Yes.
So somebody like stuff is going on, and my being will go, something's wrong, and then my head will go, you're being ridiculous. Just stay. You're tired. Just get to your place. And the other night,
it's catastrophic thinking sometimes,
Yeah, well, no. The mind was saying, stay put.
Yeah.
And my body was saying, I'm uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I would always override my body. And I literally was like, you know what? Enough, Ashley. Just get off the damn metro and wait for the next metro. And I got off, and nothing, obviously, you didn't see it on the news. Nothing happened. No one blew up the metro. But I sat there and I was like, wow, this is the first time one of the first times you didn't feel comfortable, and you got off and you listened to that. Good for you. And I'm starting to listen to that voice now of turn left, turn right, go straight, move this way, sit down. Like that's my focus of like, how much can I listen to my voice without but is this going to get me where I need to go? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm more now being like, go fuck off, Ashley. Like that voice that's constant to, oh my gosh, can I just share this with you real quick? I think this is cool. I swear to you, a month ago, I had a dream.
Yeah.
I had a dream, and I've never had this. I have vivid dreams.
Yes.
It was very scary. I was, when you have a lucid dream, and I turned to the right because I felt somebody standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my higher self. And I looked up, like she was so tall, and I knew she didn't say a word, but she stood in her being. She looked at me. She looked through me, and I was looking up at her, and I could feel her energy, but she was just me. She looked like me. And I was like, oh my God. And she said, without saying words, she says, are you ready to merge? And I did. You're not, no. I literally was like, holy shit. And I got myself out of the dream. I jumped up in bed, and then I started laughing, and I was like, oh, that's what you do in life. Right when you're at that moment of growth,
escape. Yeah. You get out of it. Yeah.
Can I handle it? Yeah, but it was wild. So yeah, it's been I would say this whole experience is about me just stepping into me. So that could go. I know I went off from your question.
No, I'm inspired, and I have vivid dreams as well, so I can relate to everything you're saying. And I'm not just saying that. I think this conversation that we're having today, I need it. So I'm really happy that it's being had. So wherever it goes, it's meant to go, and I'll just run with it. Just lastly, let's go to the last episode that kind of stuck out to me. And it's a good segue because I wanted to ask you if like that feeling when you were on the train, was that was that anxiety? Do you feel like that was anxiety at all initially? So the other episode, episode 33, the title is Anxiety is for the Living, Peace is for the Dying. And I myself, I just realized or found out that I don't want to use the term suffer, but I've had my experience with anxiety, and it was only in the last year that I realized, wow, I now have experience in anxiety, and throughout my life I never did. Or maybe I did unknowingly, but it never affected me in the way that it has in the past year. I've had 2 panic attacks. The second one, like I thought I was going to die. Like I couldn't identify it. I thought I was done here. The first one being, me in hysteria. Like I had to pull over on the highway because I thought I was going to crash from crying and laughing at the same time, like hysteria, like it was just so scary. So thankfully I'm calmer now, and I understand. I'm sort of using my anxiety to my advantage and managing.
Yeah.
So that title really stuck out to me. And as you were describing your experience on the train and stuff like that, like, was that anxiety for you? And what did this episode mean to you with this topic?
Okay. So multiple things I want to say here. I'm going to first touch on this, like what you're saying with the anxiety, and then I'm going to talk about this episode, because this was my favorite episode that I've had. The anxiety thing, so again, this is just my personal experience. I have suffered from anxiety for years, and it got so bad the past 5 years I've had insomnia, and I could go days without sleep. Days, and people would be like, you never look tired, but my brain was off, and I'd over caffeinate to even like function, and then I'd what happened. So yes, I know anxiety, and every day there was just a low level, like not even low level, but I would just spin out all the time. But I never took medication because that was my own thing. I didn't want to.
Me neither.
And I would do meditation. I did everything you're supposed to do holistically, but I would still have it. So something that I will be writing about is as soon, and like I said, coming to Paris was just the hardest thing for me. And the decision and the anxiety and the craziness, that, I swear to you, my insomnia left very quickly. All of a sudden, sleeping deep every single night. And I'm like, what is that? And everything I'd be scared, like you're saying, being on the metro. Okay, yes. My gut is like, something's off, but I wasn't scared, because now it was just me and me, that I had to choose in that moment. Am I going to go into fear, or am I going to say, something's watching over me? Yes. And I have to trust that. And there's more of a piece of, if something happens, okay. But something, for some reason in LA, I was trying to control everything. I was always anxious. I was never sleeping. It was hell. I was always felt like I was in hell, when externally, if you looked at my life, you'd be like, why would she have anxiety? Right. So what I feel now is that when you are not really getting real with yourself and listening to those cues within yourself, or over talking them, you are going to have anxiety. You are going to have depression. I truly 100% now believe that, because for my insomnia to go away, this is all I knew for 5 years, and I couldn't travel. And even in the States, like I would go somewhere and I'd have a luxurious room, like beautiful. You'd be like, of course. Or I'd be in Hawaii, beautiful. Couldn't sleep. Go in my mind. Why, when I come to Paris? And so I look back and I'm like, my soul was saying, you got to get here. Didn't know why. I got here, healed my sleeping. My anxiety is really like, it doesn't operate. I'll get moments, but I'm just grounded. I feel so much more peace. And so to me, I think it really goes back to, yes, there's external circumstances, right? That can happen in life, a death, an illness, that is stressful. That can cause anxiety. But also I think is from my personal experiences, I wasn't listening to my soul. And that, I think, I can talk about this for so long because everything is changing for me so fast the minute I step on the ground. So going back to that episode, Pieces for the Dying, Anxiety is for the Living, that is the rabbi who I was telling you about. So he has been at the bedside of over 1,000. He talks about this on the episode, and he wrote a book on it. The book is not about death, it's about living, right? And since he's been at the bedside of 1,000 dying people, actively dying, which means within a day,
Yes.
he said he asked every single person, "Are you afraid to die?" And he said not one person said they were afraid, not one. He said the only people who are afraid are the people who are living. He said a peace comes over you. So we talked a lot about, well, what can death teach us about living, right? Because it's all going to come. Death is going to come. And I've always been afraid. I'm more afraid of the death and the loss of my loved ones than more so than my death. But after listening to this episode, it really, or talking with him, the way he speaks about death, and this is a taboo topic, right? We don't talk about stuff like this. It really made me comfortable more with those parts. And I think anxiety also definitely comes when we're not facing certain parts of ourselves. And it's like this little like hammer that's knocking on us, you know, like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Right? So that episode, if anyone is dealing with a loss, a pending loss coming, or just have lost, this is the episode for you to heal. Overall, in general, I mean, I had the most feedback about it, just how he's just so real. And for any man, I highly recommend it, because this is a 63-year-old man who is so in touch with his vulnerability, and he's successful and he's powerful and blah, blah, blah. But his vulnerability of saying, I became a rabbi because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. He's like, I have anxiety. He was just on the Today Show last week, and they were interviewing him on the Today Show. And he was talking about how he suffers, and he had to go on medication this year from anxiety because of the stress of his job. He was like, thought he was going to be canceled because all this pressure from the congregation on how this rabbi should be, and he forgave somebody, you know?
How he should
And
conduct himself and all of that
yeah.
jazz. Yeah.
So anyways, it's this interesting thing.
Well, I remember when that moment, the second moment, the panic attack or whatever that occurred. It was on our Thanksgiving, and I was around the table with my family, and I have an episode that's dedicated to this moment because it's the first time that I've been, taken to the hospital, and EMS having to come and pick me up, and it was just like it was the first time I've experienced something like this. But I remember being like, when something's happening to your body that you're just unfamiliar with, you don't know what is happening, and you don't know what's about to happen. You think that this is it. Like this, I remember just thinking, okay, this is it. And it was like I thought I was having a heart attack. Like my heart was just like, I was frozen. I wasn't sure if it was a seizure or a heart attack or what, but it was like I was around the table, I was sitting at the head, and my family was around me. And, I don't know my father. I don't know who my father is. And I remember seeing the joy on my cousins' faces, and their father and their mom, my aunt. It was like I was having an outer body experience where like I was seeing the joy that they had that I always wanted for myself. Their family was sort of complete, and I'm their cousin and their nephew, and I'm at the head of the table. And their parents raised me pretty much, but they're still not mine. They're my aunt, they're my uncle, but that's their parents. So I was just looking around the table, and I just started smiling. And then this feeling came over me that I couldn't, like, it's like I was clenching, and like I was smiling, but then tears were coming down my eyes uncontrollably.
Oh.
And my family, they were looking at me like, Arys, you okay? Like, what's going on? And they see I'm smiling, so they think like nothing's wrong. But it's like, you're stuck. You're stuck. And then my aunt, she got up, she was sitting on my right, and she got up, she's like, Arys. And I'm looking up at her, and I can't speak, but I'm crying and I'm smiling. And then I start to hold her like I'm tight. And then I fell off the chair. And thankfully my aunt, she's a nurse, right? So she put me in position on the ground, and my uncle, who's like a really hard guy, but in this moment he was the softest I've ever
Oh,
seen him, you know. I'm their first nephew, like I'm the first
yeah.
born out of all the grandchildren, so I saw everything, you know. So they raised me. I was there with them before their children were born, you
Yeah.
know. So my cousin, so my aunt is holding me, and I just remember blacking out in and out, and I felt very cold all of a sudden, you know. And I was saying my uncle's name, and it was like the last, I thought his name was going to be the last word I say. And I was just saying, Uncle Chris, Uncle Chris, Uncle Chris. And I thought I was done, Ashley. And
Oh my God.
yeah, and it was scary. It was like, ever since that moment, my life has
Yeah.
just changed because I just value things differently now. I understand that, like, you know, going back to limits, like, I'll never limit myself again. I will never stop. I'm going to live my life. I'm not going to
What do you think
compromise.
was what was under that though?
I feel like I was overjoyed, but also jealous, maybe, you know, I
You
just
think it was
wanted that
the pain? Like
part.
the I don't know your background,
No, no,
but
speak.
you would know if you stuffed that down your whole
It was an
life, right?
amalgamation of things, and that was it. Like
And then
it was
maybe a
coming back
moment
up.
it came up
It was
and
coming up.
you didn't know how to process all of that.
It was coming up. It was like anger, joy.
Yeah.
It's, imagine
Yeah.
feeling everything all at once
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
knowing,
Yeah.
your body doesn't
Yeah.
know how to process it. So
Yeah.
when the ambulance came, and I was hospitalized, and I met with like a psychotherapist,
Yeah.
and you know, we kind of dived into what I've been going through in the past year. I've never been
Mhm.
on medication. I don't believe in that personally, but I know some folks do. But I've been good ever since. And then therapy came into play this year. So that was last
Right.
October, Thanksgiving, our Canadian Thanksgiving. And then
Okay.
I started therapy in April. So
Okay. Okay.
I've been learning how to manage my
Yeah.
feelings, my emotions,
Yeah.
and teaching, not teaching, but sharing my journey through therapy with my followers and stuff, because
Yeah.
I don't believe therapy is the answer. I'm not like the poster boy for it, but it's a tool that can be used. Just
Of
like
course.
money. Money's a tool.
Of
Communication is a
course.
tool, right? These are all tools that we can use to benefit from, and work on ourselves, and maybe grow out of whatever we haven't been able to grow out of before, you know? So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's why that title really, really stuck out for me, because I remember feeling peaceful when I felt like I was about to go.
Oh
There
my
was a
God.
peaceful feeling, like, okay, this is it. It's
Wow.
okay. I'm in the arms of my uncle and my aunt, the ones who love me the most.
Yeah.
I blacked out.
Have you felt that pain after that moment that your heart might carry from not having a father?
No,
Or did something release?
everything released, even to the point where
Interesting.
even to the point where I've been able to face my mother about all of this stuff,
Mm.
you know, and
Wow. It's
I've been
beautiful.
able to kind of let her go, let go of the resentment that I have
Yeah.
towards her, and me not knowing my father, you know, like, what's so special about me? Why give me the information, you know? But there's always been she's reluctant to share these things. And there's just been a disconnect between her and I. And now that I'm older, at age 32, it's like, I have to live for me now. I can't hold on to these things and define my life
Hmm.
based on my anger towards my mother, having mommy issues, daddy
Yeah,
issues, or
yeah,
lack
yeah,
thereof.
yeah.
Like, it's time for me to move forward in the healthiest way. That doesn't mean I forget everything.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that I'm not living for that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so I want to
Yeah.
encourage, especially men, to deal with their shit. Like, this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I
Hmm.
don't see any men posting anything or supporting these movements. It's all women. And ironically, some women don't even take the time to, you know, there are these fads, you know, these monthly fads that people kind of partake in and participate in. Even if they don't really believe in these things, they just like, oh, let me post it and whatever. It's not really real. But a lot of women don't really speak with men about men's mental health. You really have to sit down with a man and pick his brain. But I
Hmm.
also don't see men participating or speaking about it. And it's our month, you know? So I'm just learning these things about us as people and how to really manage emotions and how much mental well-being is so important. You got to take care of yourself, of oneself.
Yeah.
Only you
Yeah.
can, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like looking back now that you can see, I don't know if you believe this, but like that I personally believe we choose our family coming in.
Like
Unconsciously, like
before
our
to
soul.
arriving,
Yeah. Yeah. We're
before
like, okay,
arriving.
these are the lessons that we want to go through. And now I was going to ask you this question
Mm-hmm.
at the end of your segment, but I think you kind of answered it because I was going to say, like, why did you start your podcast? But it sounds like from perhaps that event and everything, like seeing, can you see that your past, all the pain you've had with your family and all that, how it is for you?
Unfortunately, I see it. Yeah. I wish it wasn't, because you made a comment earlier about like, why do we have to suffer to learn things or to evolve and stuff, right? And it's like, you got to own it. It is yours. It is
But then it
yours.
doesn't
Yeah.
control you as much, right?
You
Like if
have
you're like,
to.
oh,
Yeah.
this is for me, and how do I use it for me, right? So you now use your voice. You now went through a healing. You almost felt like you're dying.
Yeah.
And you had a rebirth. That's what it sounds like. Like
That's
you
exactly what it
rebirthed
was. Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
And now you get to do a lot of good and talk about it. And had that not happened, had you not had your past, right? You wouldn't be doing, I mean, that's cliche and what have you, but I think that's how we have to remind ourselves
Yeah.
in order to stay empowered with our situations. Cause we all have shit. You know what I mean? We
But it's
all,
how we manage that shit. Cause like the shit could
yeah.
really the shit will exist and
Yeah.
you can't get rid of your shit. It's just, you got to
Yeah.
manage it, exercise it, make it
Yeah.
work to your benefit,
Yeah.
whether it's in the form of teaching others or supporting others, always speaking from experience so that you can show people like, look, I made it out of this. So can you, give folks hope. So you do have to own it and exercise it. I do believe that. And become one with it in a way, in some weird way, but not in the detrimental sense. Just you control it, you manage it, and you'll
Yeah.
be able to
Sure.
overcome it. So, we're gonna go into a couple quick segments, but before
Yeah.
we do, let just share with the listeners and the viewers where they could find you and find your show.
Into the Dawn, my podcast is on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Spotify.
Yes.
Um, Instagram, Ashley D. Rivard. That is more, I do like this thing called car therapy where I pretend to be a little bit of a narcissistic therapist who calls people on their bullshit. And I take the topics in, we live in such a PC world. I personally don't think that helps anything. But anyway, so I try to flip them on their heads, the topics, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's where they can find my shows.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you've heard anything today that sort of resonates you, that ignites anything inside of you, and you want to touch base with Ashley, she just shared her socials. So reach out to her, reach out to me, touch base with the Who and How Club at Who How Club on all social media platforms or whohowclub.com. Or you touch base with me personally at Only One Arys, ONLY, the number one ARYS. And we could just talk shop and pick each other's brains on everything that has been spoken about on today's episode. This is how conversations with strangers really happen. Ashley and I don't know each other from anywhere, and we're just being able to just share and be open and pick each other's brains and also challenge each other on things. And this is what the Who and How Club represents. So we're going everywhere right now. We're gonna sort of go into a couple segments. The first one, it's like a Who and How lightning round. We're gonna do this segment and then we'll get into the Ask the Club segment. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and this is where you sort of share the first thing that comes to your mind. You could respond. We kind of promote or push folks to respond with like a one-word response, but if something else is speaking to you, the way that you want to answer this question, that's fine, but it's really just bang, bang, bang kind of thing. Cool. We'll start off with who taught you?
Myself.
Where did you come from?
Alaska.
Think deeper.
Um,
Where do you
I
really
mean,
think where do you come from?
I come from Source
Mm. Why are you here?
to share.
Um, when I was gonna ask this earlier, but I wanted to know, like, when did you find you? Like, when
Uh,
did you find you?
I started going on it like mid 20s. But I would say, really, to be honest, it all clicked since I came to Paris.
Mm.
So 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
It's been about a 10-year journey.
Mm. Speaking of Paris, what are some French words that you learned, if
Um,
any?
Bonjour, bonne journée, bonne journée. Désolé, I say désolé. I'm
Désolé,
sorry.
oui, oui.
Désolé.
J'ai désolé, oui.
Um, I say this every day. Désolé, je ne parle pas français. Parlez-vous anglais? And I just asked him, do you speak English? Yeah, just your basic,
Do you have
basics.
do you have a book that you're using, like a
No,
translation book? What do
I
you?
took French right when I got here. I went into like a 4 week, 5 days a week, 4 hours a day French class. So yeah, but then it was very intense. And I realized, oh, I'm not here to just learn French. I'm here to really dive into the culture and explore and feel. And so I stopped that and I walked the streets. I did a post on, I realized I met my loneliness. I didn't realize how lonely I was.
Mm.
And I would walk and I would walk. And I was like, wow, here are people think, oh, you're in Paris. And it's been really interesting because I think the narrative, how people think of Paris and what is shown is like the beautiful things, but it's a city and it's dirty, and I'm like, oh my God, this is disgusting. Da, da, da. And then, yeah, and you're alone.
Well,
So
well, great segue. It seems like we're on the same wavelength. My next question for you in the lightning round was going to be, what's the difference between being alone and loneliness for
I
you?
think alone aloneness, for me personally, there's a piece in that. And loneliness is there's this angst, right? I thought I was at peace being alone, but it just dropped me into a whole nother thing. Not knowing the language, not having a support system, realizing how important those were. I am a loner. I like to be alone. I like my alone time. But I've learned I need people. I need connection. So it's opened me to myself and it's opened me to other people. And I've seen so many beautiful things of people just realizing there's good people in the world. People have shown up for me, having a woman just say to me, this is so ridiculous, but being in a foreign country, not knowing the language.
Yeah.
And I looked at this woman in the pharmacy and I was desperate because not a lot of people speak English, weirdly. And she could tell like I was about to break and I was holding on because I had vertigo and I was spinning and I just needed a doctor. And I had been to 2 emergency rooms that didn't have doctors. It was a shit show. And she looked at me and she said, don't worry, I'm going to help you. And never in my life had that meant so much to me. And I promised myself, when I ever meet anyone, if I'm in the US or somebody who's alone traveling, I will take them, like I will make them feel, it's very challenging. And I think people should travel alone because you have no one to depend on but you. You know what I mean? You have to get uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, period.
What's your sign?
Libra.
Libra. Okay. Have you yourself ever been suicidal?
No.
Okay. And what does being here mean to you?
It means showing up for yourself and doing everything it takes to show up for yourself. Because otherwise, you know that saying, I would say, if you were to quote my life, it would be that Socrates quote: a life unexamined is not worth living.
Hmm.
An unexamined life is not worth
And
living.
then, yeah, yeah. Huh. Thank you. Thank you so much for being so open with us and transparent about everything going on in your life right now. I feel like we could do a part 2 episode to really go at we didn't really touch on the base stuff, but we're pretty much figuring out where you're at right now in your life,
Yeah.
which I like. To end this segment off, what is next for you? What is next for Ashley?
Well, I have to go back to LA on Thanksgiving. Well, this will probably air after, so I'll be back in LA for
Yeah.
a few months, and I'm in the process of getting my visa to come back here. And I'm going to, I don't want to go back to the States until I've completely transformed my consciousness to where I can't fall back into the patterns and I can hold my energy and be around anyone and not be affected, or affected, but can get myself out of it, right?
Yes.
3 months isn't long enough to, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
really hold the transformation. So I'm going to come back and do my work over here and go around to different cultures and explore them and expose the taboos and try to connect the dots more.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared within this hour and a half that we've been sitting here with that lightning round. So now we're going to get into the Ask the Club segment. It's where our guests get an opportunity to sort of pose questions, either myself directly or just a general statements or questions that the listeners can sort of participate in when they hear this episode or view the visuals on YouTube. So you have any questions for us today for the club?
Okay, so like I said, I was gonna say what that was personal. What inspired you? Well, I said what inspired you to do your podcast? I think it
Mhm.
was what happened with you, correct? That event of feeling like you're gonna die.
Well, I've been doing the podcast since 2019. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
2 years, the Who and How Club is 2 years in the game. And with its accomplishments and its journey, this is like the third iteration of the show
Okay. Okay.
because the first two they were not, I'm not going to say unsuccessful, but they weren't what I envisioned it being. But I
Yeah.
finally have I get what this represents
Yeah.
and what I've always wanted it to be, what I wanted it to be and what I wanted to represent. So um, I started it just because, I wanted to speak with strangers. I
Mm.
wanted to teach people how to speak with strangers, not speak to people, but speak with people. We pass how many people on a day-to-day basis? There are so many people on this planet. We should be able to just share with one another because we are sharing very similar experiences. We just don't know it because we're not speaking with one another, and we're afraid of each other. Doesn't matter about what stage of life you're in, we can learn. And when I don't like to use age, I say stage. Someone could be 45 and I'm 19, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. We could learn. There's a reciprocal energy there that can be exchanged. And we got to take the time to really learn that and understand that. So it's one of the many reasons why the show and this platform was created. Yeah.
And how often do you challenge yourself in your daily, like how aware of are you of everything you're doing and thinking and why you make choices you make and who you hang out with and how you think? Like, do you challenge that, or do you just tend to go with it?
I don't think the gods made me uh, in a way that would just go with things. I'm not programmed that way. I dissect everything, including everything that has to do with me. I mentioned earlier about us being the stars of our movie, right? Of our movies, our films, which is our life. Like, I pick apart everything, and at the end of the day, I'll come home and I'll think about my day and just really reflect on like my role in every conversation that I had, every interaction, how I gave myself to others, and I could have given some to myself instead. I pick those things apart. I'm aware that I'm growing, I'm changing on a day-to-day basis. And I'm a homebody. I'm a bit of a loner as well. The very few people that I have in my life, they're associated with me because we're working together or we're building together. So it would be great to come across someone, whether in a female form, relationship form at some point, or just people who are on the same path. You know, we don't have to think the same or maneuver the same or be doing the same things, but it's like a tribal thing. You know, it'd be good to find my tribe. But I do feel like I'm one of one uh,
Mhm.
in this stage of life that I'm in right now. So it gets lonely sometimes, but I know there's a bigger purpose attached to this alone time that the gods have granted me with because I asked for it. And
Mm.
you can't push away what you've asked for. So I gotta sit with this and accept it, you know. I asked for it, so I'm here and I gotta be patient.
And do you feel that you are following your soul?
I always have. There was never a moment in my life that I haven't. And I learned this at a young age. You know, when I was younger, like I grew up in foster care. So I was just kind of forced to grow up quicker than my peers at the time. So I've always been self aware. I've always been deep and all that jazz. I think in my life right now, I'm learning how to have more fun. I'm not in my second childhood per se, but I'm having the fun now that I didn't get
Mhm.
to have when I was younger because I was forced to grow older, be more mature. So I'm enjoying things a bit differently now, and I'm whatever is meant for. I just trust. It's trust. I wake
Yeah,
up and the
yeah, yeah.
first thing I say is, "You know what, God? Thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for allowing me to wake up and to live and to breathe and to be who I am." And to be able to speak with individuals like yourself or to do the work that I do and for my name, you know, even though, you know, I'm just grateful to be who I am and
Yeah.
to have the brain and the heart that I do because I'm able to connect with so many people because of it. And I don't
Mhm.
regret anything. There's
Mhm.
nothing worse than living in regret.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but once you claim the things that you've gone through, it's like, oh, it was meant to be. Like you said earlier, it's ours, it's mine. Let me
Mhm.
hold it. Let me wield it like a weapon. And like when it's time to pull it out, I'll pull it out. But we're
Yeah.
okay. We're on a journey now, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. Well, I mean, I want to, give you kudos for doing what you do because definitely sounds like you are self-aware, you're doing the work. And a lot of men, like you said, they aren't speaking about it. And it's still taboo for a guy to feel comfortable with it. So the more people who can talk about it, but not just talk about it to talk about it, but
Yes.
actually get in there,
Yes.
that's how we can
Change.
transform.
Yeah.
And
Evolve. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for the work you do.
No, thank you. You really inspired me today, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you being so open and honest, like I said. And I needed this conversation today, so it's kind of. I'm gonna go make some phone calls and maybe change my my tone about certain things. And
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I get it. I get it. But thank you so much. And
Of course, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the conversation that I've been having with Ashley Rivard. This is Arys Déjan, your host. You know the slogan, you are the Who and How Club. I am the Who and How Club, and we are the Who's and How's of this world. Without you, without me, there is no we. So while we're here, why don't we just talk? Remember, do not speak to people, you speak with them. All right. Run with that in your mind when you're interacting with other individuals. They're people just like you. They bleed, they have a brain, they have a heart just like you. So speak with, not to, not at. Doesn't matter what your title is, what stage of life you're in. Let's learn from one another and let's take these moments of experiences and just pick each other's brains on them because I'm sure we could learn something from each other. And I've definitely learned a lot from Ashley today. So follow her once again, share your socials.
Oh, Ashley D. Rivard is my Instagram. I have a website, ashleyrivard.com, and Into the Dawn, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. And just, asterisk side note, they are very intense, some deep, they're not for the light and fluffy.
I'm
the
excited
topic.
to listen to those 3 specific episodes. So
Yeah,
I'll let you know how I felt after listening to them. And we're gonna
awesome.
share Ashley's links in the descriptions, folks, in case you missed her sharing them. So you could just keep in touch with her. All right. We'll check in a week. It's been the Who and How Club. Thanks for checking in. Touch base with you in a week. Later.